Hey everybody, I'm Seth V for the KnifeCenter, and it is new knives time. Let's take a look at the latest and greatest knives that just hit our shelves. It's always a good week around here when we can kick things off with a new KnifeCenter exclusive, and this one has got a lot of people in the office here pretty excited. Not only is the knife one of our favorites, the Kizer Drop Bear, but the configuration and the price point just really put this thing over the top. So what we've got here is an S90V blade, contoured burlap micarta scales, and a price of $139.95. We're really happy with how these came out. We are just so pleased that we can offer S90V steel at that price. It's a fantastic, high edge retaining steel, very stainless, still one of the best options on the market. Burlap micarta scales. I think this particular burlap is very high quality. It looks great. They've kind of given it a little bit of extra polish too to just really help the material pop. And we've also equipped it with a upgraded milled titanium clip. This clip works really great. It's kind of a hybrid between your typical milled clip and a more traditional bent design. So it's still got a lot of springiness to it, but has a kind of contoured shape that helps make the whole clip more ergonomic, not poke your hand as much. It's just a smooth experience all around. And the design, if you haven't yet tried a Drop Bear, this is a great excuse to get one. It truly is one of the best EDC knives for everyone. The size of this blade coming in just under 3 inches makes it easy to take anywhere. The handle design is very accommodating for large and small fingers alike. I know that, for example, David with his slightly larger than average hands and me, we both get a really good experience out of this thing. The Drop Bear is a knife that we both liked enough to actually buy. So I'm awfully tempted to get this one too. I'm gonna try to hold off because I already have one, but man, the deal is so good. Of course, you've also got the crossbar lock, which is something it shares with a bunch of knives on the table today, interestingly. Kizer's crossbar lock works amazingly well. It's got ball bearings in the pivot for a super fluid action, and the spring is adjustable too, so if you want a little lighter detent or a little heavier detent, you can adjust it to your liking and kind of make this thing your own. Next up, we have a couple of releases from McNees knives. This is the very popular Mac 2. This particular version comes in at $595 with a MagnaCut blade steel and this cool kind of milled shockwave pattern in this case. Other versions are available now, and the price is going to kind of go up or down from this one depending on the exact configuration. And the reason I'm showing this early in the video is because these do tend to go quickly. So if you've been holding out for a McNees Mac 2, don't hesitate and try to grab one now. I can't guarantee that they won't be sold out. In fact, if you are a part of our broadcast channel on our Instagram or Facebook pages, you will have heard about this the moment they were available for sale. So if these kind of drops are something that you want to hear about first, be sure to join our broadcast channels on Facebook and Instagram. It's just a really easy way to kind of reach our most passionate followers these days, and we're not spamming people there. We're just letting them know about kind of newsworthy drops and flash sales. So yeah, check that out. It's something we're trying. I think it's been working well, but in any case, let's get back to the knife. The Mac 2 is kind of a masterclass in compact power. The blade is 3.5 inches, but it doesn't feel that long, and I think it's because everything about this knife just is such an efficient use of space. As you can see, the pivot here is really far forward on the handle, which allows the blade to fold up very, kind of use the whole space of the handle very efficiently. And then the handle design itself, it's not got a big beak or a bunch of features here. You can pretty much put your fingers anywhere on this handle for its entire length. So like I said, even though the dimensions are somewhat compact, It fills the hand very well. It gives you some affordances for different grips, for moving around on. This is a real user of a knife, for sure. And it has everything you want in an American-made, modern tactical folder. I mean, the handles are full titanium. They have this beautiful milled pattern on the outside. They're also milled on the inside to save weight. The pocket clip, you know, some people prefer a milled clip, but I actually really like McNees' bent clips. They work great, they're comfortable, they're kind of low profile in the hand, you don't feel them that much. And then the blades are fantastic. The grinds are perfectly even. MagnaCut steel, of course, is just truly top tier these days. The action is dialed in. And one kind of unique thing, one thing that McNees does uniquely well is the way they tune their frame locks. I'm not sure how they're pulling this off, but more than almost any other maker on the market, they managed to make a frame lock that doesn't seize itself closed when you put some pressure on the lock bar. Yeah, no matter how you're holding this thing when you go to deploy it, it feels pretty much the same. Yeah, snappy action, easy to deploy. Ball bearings in the pivot? Yep, ball bearings in the pivot for action that's gonna break in beautifully. There's a reason why these sell so quickly. They are truly some of the best USA-made tactical folders out there, period. Next up, we're taking a brief detour into fixed blades today with the McNees Ridge Runner. This is actually a Blade Show award-winning design here, and it's kind of a, well, I don't want to call it a fixed blade version of the Mac 2 because the handles are somewhat different, but I think in use it gives you a lot of the same capabilities, just, you know, stronger and more suited to even harder use. You've got great ergonomics, a good contour to the handle here. These are Jade G10. The blade steel is 3V, it's full tang construction, and the price on these is $312. You know, it's a little big to be a truly dedicated EDC pocket fixed blade, but it's definitely the kind of fixed blade that would still be comfortable to carry every day. You've got a Kydex sheath to go with it. Pretty lightweight and snappy. Comes with this belt loop integrated, but you can set this up for any number of Tech-Lock style attachments. I don't know, even throw an ulti-clip on there, throw it in your pocket. It's a little big, but I think some people could make it work. I quite like the way that this handle has a bit of a taper here for pinch grips, for some fine control in that finger scallop there, and then a bit of a flared end here to really fill out the grip where you need that power in the back two fingers. Even in the reverse grip, it works pretty well. Normally, knives with a finger scallop there can kind of get in their own way a bit, but I'm not finding that to be the case here. I think there's just enough real estate on this handle to make it work for pretty much any grip. 3V steel, of course, is very, very tough stuff. One of the toughest particle metallurgy steels in common use out there. It's just something you can rely on if you're going to be thrashing your fixed blade about, and I do think that this is a blade that is built to be thrashable. All right, our next in the fixed blade detour is a very interesting one from Ocaso Knives. This is the Crawford Duo desk knife. Really interesting concept here. So it doesn't come with a sheath. It actually comes with this beautiful desk display. Truly just meant to stay out in the open on your desk. Here at the KnifeCenter, pretty much every knife that we carry becomes a desk knife. But I like the idea of a dedicated desk carry and, well, not carry, desk ornament that actually has some cool functionality. So the knife, you may notice here, it seems to be split down the middle, and that's because it is. It comes apart into two chisel ground blades. It gives it a bit of a fidget factor, just a cool, you know, the whole kind of genre of desk things, the desk sculptures, desk calendars, they all kind of have this really cool talking point to them, I guess you could say. And I like this split design here. It's just something special, something unique, and something that you can kind of fidget with quietly while you're on a Zoom meeting or something. So I really dig the idea here. To hold the knives together, we've got two magnets that kind of indexed together. And the other thing that sets this apart, especially as an ornament that you presumably are going to be looking at all the time, the level of finishing is fantastic. The brushed kind of flats and spine of the knives are very just consistent and elegant. And then we've got some little chamfers that are slightly brighter, kind of pop in the light. It's a very beautiful design with just some cool, funky character to it. The price on this / these is $134.99, and it comes with the stand, of course. Next up from Ocaso are a couple new versions of the Solstice. So this is the Solstice Harpoon, got a new blade shape to it, 3.5 inches of S35 VN steel, $220.49, and a very cool kind of all blacked out, slightly iridescent finish with titanium scales. The Harpoon is a really cool executive style knife. I think it's one of the most elegant, most truly kind of dressy versions of an executive knife out there. I think it owes a lot of its class to the way they've executed this pocket clip. Really, really elegant kind of branding here. The way that it folds over the top and then nests in flush into the handle. Just looks fantastic. It's also reversible, so you can flip it to the other side, have that same flush look on the other side. Every element of this knife, I think, was just really, really well thought through, from the pocket clip, like I mentioned, to the flush custom hardware on this side. It even extends down to the action, which is just unimpeachably smooth, so crisp, so satisfying. It's not a big blade, it doesn't have a lot of that inertia, but you can see how easily I was able to just swing that thing closed. Silky, silky feel to it, and very usable too. I mean, executive style knives are somewhat limited in just the format as to how slicey they can be. You know, a blade that's only a ½ inch wide is not going to have the most acute grind to it, but the precision of this execution and the needle-like kind of thinness of that point is still going to give you a lot of cutting power if you're kind of going tip first into a cut. And I think that's really where things like this excel. Also, it's slim and light and easy enough to carry that pop this in a shirt pocket, it would feel very much at home there. And if you want something that's arguably even more utilitarian, you could go for this Solstice Wharncliffe. This version features the carbon fiber scales and has a noticeably more lightweight feel. This thing really is lighter than most pens. This would really work great in a shirt pocket. 1.62 ounces on this guy, so yeah, that is a featherweight. And the Wharncliffe blade is really gonna lend itself to those kind of tip first tasks like I was talking about. Just no matter how you're cutting with this thing, you're kind of leading with the tip just by the nature of the perfectly straight Wharncliffe blade. Also, one other advantage of this particular version, if you opt for the carbon fiber instead of the titanium, it's going to be a little bit more affordable at $188.99. All right, next up on the table, we are going to jump into the deep end of ultra premium production knives with a couple new ones from Custom Knife Factory. This is the Veksha, coming in at $700 with stunning raindrop zircuti inlays and a zircuti pocket clip to match. This thing is just such a showstopper. I mean, the colors are super out there. The the detailed millwork is entrancing to look at. They are kind of inlaid over the frame lock, functioning as a somewhat integrated over travel stop. And the action is front flipper. But these things are so smooth and the detent is just right that you can actually kind of flick out the blade even without any sort of fuller there if you just are very deliberate about it. You know, despite the fanciness of the materials of this design, the silhouette is pretty down to earth. This is a very utilitarian type of shape when it comes right down to it. I believe these were actually fashioned after a a Russian kind of folk knife, if we can call it that. I think they call it the squirrel, or belka in Russian, I assume. Yeah, and I think that workaday character comes through in the blade shape. Nice simple clip point with a big belly, a nice broad profile for efficient slicing. We've got M398 steel here, which is a
8 more M's.
Got 8 more M's to it. It's like M390 on steroids. It is just as stainless, but with even more edge retention for truly, truly exceptional edge holding against abrasive materials. It's honestly one of the chart-topping stainless steels in terms of edge retention. So this is a really exotic high-performance alloy here that's going to cut and keep cutting. I'm really curious about the origins of the knife that inspired this. Those Belka Soviet knives. I've seen some pictures of them, but if anybody out there has some experiences or memories of that knife, leave it down in the comments because I would like to hear from you. The next one from Custom Knife Factory is the Barm. This comes in at $650. It also features M398 steel, but is more of a symphony of gray. Not so much color as the previous version, but almost every single piece of this knife is finished in a different way to bring out a different kind of reflectivity or shade of the natural material. So titanium here on the handles has been blasted and then tumbled, I believe. You can see the kind of aggressive stonewash finish. The pocket clip appears to have just been blasted for a little bit more of a matte gray touch. Then at the blade side, we've got a hand-rubbed grind, which is definitely took some man hours to do on M398 steel. That stuff does not want to be ground easily, so that's quite an accomplishment to get that hand rub. And then, as if that wasn't enough, the swedge here is mirror polished. So a ton of time went into finishing this blade, and the end result just, yeah, like I said, symphony of grays. All sorts of different metallic finishes. The action is fantastic. Flips open very easily. It's got that kind of kinetic feel that jumps away from your finger. It's very satisfying to use. Slides closed easily, flips open again. You could do that all day. So one reason I think to buy this knife, aside from just really connecting with the design, the actual edge geometry is quite spectacular. You know, the prices are way up there for sure, but they do deliver on being a premium cutting tool. The bevels are beautifully consistent, almost like paper thin down here. If you are looking for a slicer that will not slow down, this is one to consider for sure. One other thing I'm noticing as I'm handling this now, the edges of the handles have been rounded kind of both inside and out. So it's a really comfortable handle to manipulate and kind of turn around in your hand. It's just feels soft, even though it's full metal. Looks like there's a little bit of internal milling in there as well to keep the weight down. Although this is not a particularly lightweight design, I think it does help with the balance. Oh, you know what else I missed? That pivot screw is missing on the one side. It's a one-sided pivot. That's part of why it looks so stark and sculptural. There's just the single piece of hardware on the show side. That is pretty cool. I can't believe I missed that. Very interesting design here. Next in our sort of super folder section, we have the Reate T1000-V2. So these have been on pre-order for a little while, but now they are finally here. But we have some in stock, including this version with zirconium inlays at $575. So if you're not familiar with what makes this knife special, the T1000 features a secondary locking mechanism. These pins here that kind of snap into the blade to hold it shut. And unlike a lot of secondary locking mechanisms that kind of just lock the lock, the way that this is implemented, it's a whole separate lock entirely. So not only does the frame lock locks up the blade, but these pins are an additional lock. So even if you disengage the frame lock, the knife still is unable to close. To undo those pins, you just slide this sort of a piece of the backspacer there, wedges the pins out of the way, and then you're able to operate the frame lock as normal to close the knife. As you can probably tell from just this thing's size on camera, it is a massive, massive folder. The thickness is incredible. The blade stock is super, super tough. These feature M390 steel, a very aggressive, recurved compound tanto grind. Just an intimidating, incredible knife. If you like these kind of super folders, this is truly one of the most super. It's strongest, biggest, you know, it's got all those superlatives for sure. So we actually have a number of variants of this in stock now. I think they basically just differ in the finishes and in the kind of overlay material. There's titanium, there's zirconium, I think there's like a zircuti option, and then we also have a couple of all black variants. So check them out. They're definitely pricey, but these are special enough. I don't expect that they'll stick around all that long. Next up is a sprint run from Spyderco. The very first batch of the PD1 and Burgundy kind of editions have arrived. We've got the Endela, not pictured here, and the Endura. So the Endura is $136.50. The Endela, I think, is right around $130, but they both feature the same materials, the same colorway. In fact, Spyderco is going to be kind of rolling through their whole Seki City collection with this configuration. These feature Carpenter's PD #1 steel. It's a particle metallurgy steel, which is a rarely seen kind of proprietary equivalent to Crewwear. Crucible Industries makes Crewwear. This PD1 is made by Carpenter. They're both American sort of steel makers, and you know, you should have performance comparable to Crewwear here, which means excellent toughness, excellent edge retention, excellent sharpenability, and you know, it's not the most stainless alloy, but Spyderco have gone and given this a coating, which should help alleviate most of those stainless problems. So I happen to think that this configuration looks really cool. We got this burgundy handle. I'm always a fan of Spyderco's FRN handles. I think they're quite comfortable. The texture is very aggressive in those areas where you need the grip, but it's smooth underneath the pocket clip so it doesn't tear up your pants. I mean, it's an Endura. It's a design that's been refined over years and years and years of production. If you want a high performance cutting tool with a 3.8-inch blade, the Endura is still one of the best options out there. Okay, next up we have a bunch of knives to talk about from SRM, and I'm actually really excited to see these. I am legitimately impressed by everything that's on the table here from SRM. Quality's there, the price points are there, so let's get into it. This is the 238X, and with a lot of these, we're going to be just looking at numbers instead of names, so use the links in the description to go check these out. I know I can't hardly ever remember number type names, but the knives are good enough. I think you're going to want to remember this one. So these come in at $44.95 with 3.6 inches of D2 steel, G10 handles, and a crossbar lock. And the implementation of the crossbar lock feels incredible. Everything that you kind of expect from this type of lock now. It's smooth. I don't know if the pivot is actually using ball bearings, but it feels like it is. You know, it's got that low friction character to it. And then the other kind of feature of these is they have a kind of a monolithic construction here. So the liners, rather than being two separate pieces, are one piece that's folded to give you that kind of backspacer down the middle. Makes it a very rigid, sort of stronger type of handle. It allows it to stay somewhat lightweight, but yeah, again, it's got just that heavy duty feel to it. This one has a finger choil for a couple of different grips. Feels very natural to kind of choke up there into the first clip of the double clip point blade. But there's plenty of space on the handle to just accommodate a regular grip too. Very nicely done. For 44 bucks, D2 steel crossbar lock. That is a heck of a work knife right there. Pocket clip is also ambidextrous. This one, you can see it's got a milled space to give you a nice flush presentation in the pocket. I'm really impressed. The details here are all just on point. Very cool new affordable knife from San Ranbu. Okay, next we come to the 9203-MG2. This one is slightly more expensive at $59.95, but we also get arguably an upgrade in blade steel to 10CR15 MOV. It's a stainless steel, unlike D2. We also get micarta handles, that same great crossbar lock action. This one does not feature the kind of bent handle scale construction. It's got a traditional backspacer there, but still feels very sturdy, very strong. We've got full length liners in there to kind of back up the micarta handles. And then one other feature that it actually shares with the rest of the SRMs on the table is this ambidextrous hardware-free pocket clip. So check this thing out. You can actually switch this thing's carry configuration without any tools at all. You just squeeze the pocket clip together, push it up, there you go, comes out, and then you thread it back in to the other side. Clips into place. It's sturdy, it doesn't, it's not the kind of thing that you're gonna just accidentally knock out of your pocket. You have to be very deliberate with how you squeeze the thing together and kind of push it up. But man, what a clever design. I don't know why you'd need to reverse your pocket clip multiple times a day, but if you wanted to, you certainly could. Just elegant. I like it a lot, and I like how it looks too. It's got this sort of springy strip running down it all the way up and over and into the milled groove there. Next up is the 411L-MN. This one has I was about to say tanto, but actually it doesn't have a secondary point. Just sort of a more abrupt transition in the blade grind there. Nice flat grind to it. Sandvik 14C28N steel, which is a great option for stainless steel. Very tough. Not the highest edge retention, but very easy to sharpen. This one has micarta scales, crossbar lock, and comes in at just $49.95. Just when you thought $50 flippers couldn't get any better, they went and put a crossbar lock on it. And I guess got rid of the flipper too, but this one has ambidextrous thumb studs for deployment, no flipper to be seen. But with that crossbar lock, you don't really need one, seeing as how you can just fling this thing open by pulling back on the bar. Traditional backspacer here, nice kind of elegant presentation of the lanyard hole peeking out there at the end of the handle. It's also got the hardware-free deep carry pocket clip. Yeah, as you can see, it's in there good. It's not fiddly, it's not coming out, but just so cool that you can flip it around whenever you want. One other thing I'm just noticing, it's got a crowned spine to it. So as you can see from the way the jimping looks, the spine has been softened here. It almost looks like it's a straight, yeah, in fact it is. So it's a straight spine blade, but because of the handle curvature, it still gives you a bit of drop to that point to give you some control. Pretty cool little trick of design there. All right, the next one is the 258L-GN.
Numbers?
I've already forgotten it, but luckily the design is quite memorable. This one's really speaking to me. I like the look and feel of this very much, and for the price, I'm seriously sold on it. $49.95, 3.5 inches of D2 steel. We've got that bent liner construction for a simple, solid feel in the hand. Crossbar lock, smooth, secure, snappy. What are some other good S words for it? Safe. There we go. And sharp.
We do sell sharp things.
Actually, thank you, Thomas. I wanted to draw your attention to the finishing of this edge, because I don't think I've seen something quite this refined from SRM before, but they are absolutely taking some extra polishing passes on this edge because as you can see in the close-ups that Thomas will be filming, it's got a very polished look to it. Almost like something you'd see from Hogue. They have definitely come in and buffed this thing, and while I'm not going to cut with it because this is not my knife, it looks to be and feels at the, from my thumb here testing it, feels to be a very, very sharp edge. For a budget kind of bug out competitor, you've got a bigger knife here with a similar kind of simple ergonomic feel. Man, I think this is going to make a lot of people very happy if you're shopping for just a highly refined EDC knife. Next up is the 168L-GW. This one's pretty cool too. I mean, again, if we're kind of comparing these knives to the Benchmade bug out, which, if we're honest, is kind of the archetype for crossbar lock EDC folders. This one leans a little bit more into a heavier duty design. And the reason I say that is that the blade and handle on this design are both broader. So you've got a bit more strength in that blade and a bit more handle volume to fill up your grip. The G10 scales are kind of a nice peel ply texture with a little bit of detail there kind of milled into it around where you're going to be pushing on those thumb studs to open. Snaps open very easily. Crossbar lock, safe and secure, as we've said. Got a G10 backspacer for a, I guess a slightly more premium touch, especially if we're talking about the price, $42.95. This one just says to me work knife. Maybe it's the color combination here, but it's got a bit more of a rugged character to it. This is the one I would pick if I wanted the kind of heaviest duty folder of the bunch. And I do think, kind of backing that up, this might be the only one that has washers in the pivot instead of ball bearings. So definitely going to give you a more stable and kind of more maintenance-free pivot experience than ball bearings, which for all their smoothness can be a little finicky sometimes. For the price point, I am blown away by these edges. They are definitely putting in some extra work to just make them pop right out of the box. I may have to get one and put it to the test myself. I'm just impressed. Good job, SRM. All right, the last new SRM folder here is the 255L-CB2. And this one is definitely the most premium. There are several versions of this available, some of which are not quite up to this level of materials, but they're also not quite as expensive. This one is $99.95. I think they start around $60 with G10 handles, but this one has carbon fiber, as you can see. The handles have been contoured as well, so they have a nice curvature to them. And then you've got very minimal liner construction, but it still has that fold over kind of integrated look to it to give it some extra stability. You've also got SRM's new, or maybe just new to me, motto, "Stay ready for more." I think that's what I think that's what SRM means. Stay ready for more. I can see it. I'm ready for more SRMs. This is just impressive for sure. So the blade steel on this is actually a Sanmai construction. We've got 2 layers of cladding and then a core steel. We don't have information on the exact nature of the core steel yet, but if Thomas can find it, he will put it on the screen now, or else he will put an apology, I guess.
One of the two.
Given the price point of this thing, I imagine that it's going to be comparable with the rest of the lineup at the very least. Something on par with 440C, 14C, I don't know. Can't say for sure, but I given how they've positioned this knife, I don't think they're going to go budget with the blade steel. The carbon fiber scales give it a very lively balance. Contoured handle scales feel premium. It's a premium feeling knife. At just under $100, I guess it's on par with what you'd expect, but I I'm digging it. From a company not known for making very high-end knives, at least yet, this is quite a shot across the bow, for sure. Speaking of premium knives at excellent price points, the new Kizer Vanguard Mini Grouper is here. We saw this one at Blade Show, I want to say, and I remembered it for the excellent engineering that they did on the kind of button-actuated crossbar-style lock. A lot of button-actuated crossbar-style locks suffer from a bit of a kind of awkwardness in the pivot area because they have to dedicate so much space to that mechanism, can make kind of designing around that a challenge. But the Mini Grouper really pulls it off. You know, I don't feel any sort of awkwardness here in the grips, and there's not an excessive kind of choil area either. So, well, however they managed to pull this off, they really did an excellent job of just making this feel like a knife without any sort of compromises. And then of course you still manage to get all the advantages of a crossbar style lock. You've got that crisp detent, just like a liner, you know, flicks open with that satisfying pop, but you've got the button operation to keep your fingers out of the path of the closing blade. You can even kind of work it like an axis lock where you just push the button and fling it out. Makes it very fidget friendly, much stronger than something like a liner lock, and just easy to use. I'm glad we're seeing more of these locks on the market because they are excellent for sure. So let's talk about the materials here. We've got Nitro V steel, carbon fiber handles, and a price of $79. I think I said that already, but it bears repeating. 79 bucks is a nice price for what you're getting here, I think. And yeah, boy, really, really great crossbar style lock implementation here. All right, the last sort of section we have on the table is of some traditional and traditional style knives. The first of which is the Boker BRLW. That's Barlow spelled with no vowels. So obviously they're going for a modernized Barlow here, and I think they've really pulled it off. Got 2.5 inches of Magna cut steel, nice clip point profile, titanium handles that have a cool faux bolster look, kind of a wood grain type milling to them. And these are also made in Solingen, Germany. So they are very much a kind of flagship class knife for Boker. But at $237, it's not an unreasonable price, actually. I quite like what they've pulled off here. For deployment, it's got this mini flipper tab, which is cleverly engineered to disappear when open. So it looks, it has the same profile as a traditional Barlow in the open position, but folds up and slipped in the pocket like a modern knife you'd expect. Titanium frame lock is nice and springy, gives it that satisfying kind of action there. Yeah, geez, the flipper tab is real small, but I haven't missed a flip yet. I think they've dialed it in perfectly to just make it easy to use. I also really like the Boker tree there on the pivot. Nice little detail, cool bit of branding without going over the top. And also, of course, a nod to their Barlow heritage. Boker's been making knives, traditional knives, since well before we called them traditional, back when they were just pocket knives, you know? Cool to see them kind of tipping their hat to their past while very much embracing the present. Super sweet knife. In a similar vein, we have this latest release from Finch Knives. This is the Pipeline. Now, it's kind of funny actually. So while that Barlow had a fully modern implementation, but a very traditional, silhouette, traditional design, this has a bit more of that traditional materials, but the design is not something I can point to anything in specific. I mean, you know, you've got elements of traditional spear points here and kind of things like bolsters and the shape of the handle. They're nodding at different traditional patterns, but I don't know that there's one specifically that this is kind of recreating. But it does a good job of bringing that flavor to a modern knife. This has 3 inches of 154 cm steel. This has jigged bone handles, but it's also available with mother of pearl. There's like a kyanite and a wood option as well. I believe they all come in right around $145. And for deployment, you've got a flipper, which works excellently. I believe these liners are stainless steel, but they've managed to capture some of the distinct kind of springiness of a titanium frame lock, so you still get that excellent deployment. These all feature a milled titanium pocket clip, and one other cool little Easter egg on these Finch knives, if you didn't know. The shield there actually glows in the dark. Yeah, pretty cool, pretty cool. All right, the last knife on the table is a fully traditional slip joint knife. This is one of the new releases from RoseCraft, and they're calling this the French Broad Jack. So this comes in at $54.99. It's got D2 steel, and this version has black sandalwood covers here. RoseCraft, I guess I would say, it's true of this knife, but it's also true of all their slip joints. They are really good values, and they have really good fit and finish for the money. As you can hear from that, the walk and talk is crisp, very satisfying to use. You can see if I go slowly, the way it kind of springs away from me there. Yeah, very, very nice to use. And I quite like this design because there's enough kind of blade presented in the closed position that you don't have to use the nail nick if you don't want to. You can just pinch that thing, open it up very easily. I'm also kind of partial to a Wharncliffe slip joint. I think it's a natural fit for the mechanism, since any kind of cutting forces are going to be presenting back against the spring. There's not really anything to worry about here because the spring is quite stiff on this, but you know, having a Wharncliffe blade always reassures me a little bit at least. All right, everybody. We've reached the end of the table, which means that it's time to tell you to click the links in the description if you want to get your hands on any of these knives. And don't forget about our knife rewards program, because if you spend any money on any of these sweet knives, you may as well get some free money to spend on your next one. With that, I've been Seth V for the KnifeCenter. That's Thomas behind the camera, and we will see you later.